This is as good as it gets for many Asians. Their parents will take them to games, but what if they wanted to play? Maybe a park where they will meet up with their friends every Sunday for a quick kickabout. Nothing more than a laugh. Are they taken seriously? Would their parents even take them to training?
When you are a child, you heavily rely on parental and carer support. If you don't have that, you are not going to be able to commute to a football club or a sporting club. So I think that the support that the parents give children at an early age is vital.
As a young kid, I never really had any backing from the family to go into football. I wasn't even in a school team at any time because there was no one to pick me up after school. I slowly went into it and I want to start playing football. It's against the wishes of everyone at home, but this is something that I really wanted to do. When I was looking for a team, there was no one really to help me out in terms of support from home to take me anywhere if there was any, a team to actively go out and find any teams, or if there was any teams, there was no one to sort of take me to football training or even dietary needs. There's no one that was supporting me, so it's very, very difficult. When I was younger, we went to multiple football tournaments. I remember playing a few tournaments in Beckton as well and all around UK. There's a few times where in Beckton we came across against the Arsenal youth team. We beat them multiple times in finals. There's that time where Tottenham scout was there as well and I caught his attention. I was offered a trial, but unfortunately due to no family backing, no one took me there. It's always drilled into my head that you need to get an education, you need to get a degree, you need to make sure you're employed. Football isn't really something that's going to benefit you.
I certainly know from when I was growing up there was a divide and there were certainly differences in the way that my mum perceived me to be playing football, and she always said she was more than happy for me to play for the schools team. I got scouted at 9 and I went to trial for Barnet's Academy and I got in, but it was never then going to happen because I didn't have somebody that was going to take me to training.
What parents need to do is they need to give their children support first and foremost, and that includes basic things like taking kids to training, picking them up from training, just talking to them and just empathise with them and see where they're coming from. I think a lot of Asian kids quite feel detached from their parents in that sense because it's not really fitting with our culture. Sport isn't really seen as a viable career. It's changing slowly, and certainly things are a little bit different now with kids whose parents are actually born in this country. I think parents need to do everything they possibly can to support their children along the way.
The most important thing is support. When I was trying to make it in the game, my parents never actually watched me play football. They were out working. I had other things to do, do you know what I mean? And I've always thought that didn't have an impact on me because, when you're young, you just think, just give me my boots, I'll go and play. But it's funny because I always talk about it. So when I do my talks to academy players, etc., it's one of the things that I always mention. So it must have had a big impact on me. The massive thing is to get the parental support. It's an unbelievable massive thing, and that's on the pitch, that's off the pitch, that's just in the daily run-ins of a young player trying to grow up in this industry. It's massively important that parents are involved in their children's upbringing, and I think the more parents can embrace the impact of their son playing football and kind of balance the difference.
Coaching children needs to start at an early age. It's in the blood of English players. Their parents will take them to games, but they will take them to training too. So what role does parental support play in a child's development?
If you don't support your kid in doing what he wants to do, then it's always going to be a negative for the kid. If you support the kid in doing what they want to do, you'll see a much bigger change of what they want to do, and they'll have a big hunger to actually do it because they actually want to do it, not your parent wants you to do it.
My dad always wanted us to get into sports. He'd work his long days at work, come back, take us to the park, play football, be in the garden, play football, encourage us to train.
Without my parents, I wouldn't be where I am today with football, honestly. And I know it's difficult for women in football, especially Asian women. So for me to be able to get my career to where it is now because of my parents is why it's possible. Like, they literally took me to every training session, they supported me. When things didn't go my way, they made sure I had 10 other doors open to get through, and when I thought I couldn't get nowhere in the football, they pushed me even more.
We knew if Zidane was going to go to the level that we want him to go, or where his dream wants to take him, to become a professional footballer. I think this was the path that we accepted as parents that we'll go through.
They gave me enough support from a young age to sort of really initiate a pathway and a career into the professional game. And I think looking back now, without that initial support, it would have been very difficult.
When I was going to the high levels, going to the bigger clubs, I needed that family support to get me to places. For example, in Nottingham, when I played for Notts County, I needed accommodation, I needed places there, I needed studying, so they went with me, they made sure I had everything settled. Without them, I don't think I would have been able to do that.
When you look at different leagues, you don't see many role models, but it is important for young players to find someone to look up to. They might not see a role model in the Premier League, but they could look closer to home, to someone who is playing football every week.
It differs according to region and according to area, but I think in general, from my experience, most Asian children, in terms of football role models, their football role models aren't Asian, simply because there aren't enough Asian people involved in football across the game. So I think you'll find now that a lot of young children, or a lot of kids approaching their teenage years, if you ask them, who's your hero, who do you look up to, they'll say the likes of Lionel Messi, they'll say the likes of Cristiano Ronaldo.
The role models should be your local people, because they're going to be engaged with the communities. You know, they're going to be inspiring, they're going to be empowering, they're going to be visible.
Grab onto that role model, whoever they may be. Grab onto them and try and follow the same journey and pathway. I think the more open football can be, sometimes it's not in the player's control, so the more open football can be to embrace that would help the young player in their journey. But, you know, grab onto that role model, grab onto that person. And, you know, we've got to realise that because there's not Asian role models, you've probably got to lower your expectation a little bit to where that role model may be.
A traditional education is what most people want for their children. So what if their son or daughter wanted to play football?
If I go traditionally to my parents, sports wasn't on their mind. It's about getting jobs and making sure that we were looked after first. So it can be a generational thing as well. The next generation of young people who are born here, they're going to have a different outlook for their kids, because they've had opportunities as well, and they'll be more aware around what's happening in the game, what's their opportunities in the professional game.
It's about family understanding that this is what I want to do, and it's not going to be easy. And, you know, to give it your best chance, I need your full support.
Being encouraged to do it at school, it not being an option, and then they're developing that passion, and then there's the opportunity in places like this for them. So I think hopefully it will progress more and more, but it is definitely a big change.
My two children, for example, absolutely love football and want to play football as a living, want to be football players. So yes, you know, I'll develop and support that dream. Of course I will, and I'll do it as much as I can. But I think at a young age, I think I have to be realistic and have a nice balance between school, between family life and football. But having said that, I mean, you know, my two children would play football all day, every day if they could. So, you know, I'm not going to discourage that. If that's what they want to do, that's great, and I'll do it with them.
The mindset has been academic. You know, we want to make sure the boys and the girls do well in primary in their stats, you know, GCSEs, and get a good degree, go to a good university. I think that's always going to be there. Parents whose sons or daughters were born in this country, they're going to have a different outlook, because they see football, they see Premier League, they see, you know, the opportunities.
So if you look at the first generation, people who might have come here and not had an idea about football and how it works, it might be a bigger education piece. But now second and third generation parents have probably played football themselves and are completely aware of the whole situation. So actually, culturally, there aren't many issues at all. So it really depends on almost the individual parent and what direction they're coming from.
The endless hours of dedication spent in the game when they might not even make it professionally. But is that the only way to be successful?
The FA oversees or has any remit or power over the grassroots game. And Sport England stats would state that Asian boys, for example, are the most likely people to play football. What people look at, the headlines are the Premier League and Football League, where you've got a very low, massive underrepresentation. And the issue there is how you translate those players at grassroots level to get to the pro game. And that's where professional clubs, professional academies, Football League clubs, that's where all that comes in. That's where the glass ceilings are.
Certain prejudicial attitudes remain, and that is also to do with the Asian community as well. When some coaches, they look at a young Asian kid playing with them, They think the second he hits 15, he's going to be studying for his GCSEs. The second he hits 17, he's going to be studying for his A-levels. So I do think that that is a bit of a deterrent for coaches. I do also think there are perceptions about the physique of young Asian players. They tend to be quite slight, quite slender, and so certainly I think some coaches do have reservations about whether or not they can mix it.
I think sometimes when you look at the scouting system, people go out looking for something. They go out looking for a particular kind of player. That kind of player has to look a certain way, play a certain way, act a certain way. And they don't embrace the fact that players come in all shapes and forms and sizes. So they go out with almost a preconceived idea of what they want. And if you don't match that preconceived idea, for me, you don't have an opportunity.
I don't think that enough of football is looking at the Asian community as a genuine talent pool. I don't think they have over the last 15 years, and I think they've missed out on some amazing players.
Every parent wants to see a professional footballer in the Premier League.
The club's available to the kids now, and goals, and he had his birthday party at Goals, that was 5-a-side, all that now, it's everywhere. Right? We see 2 goals places on the way here. It's grown so much more and the opportunities for them are so much bigger now.
For my children, I want to make sure that they've got my full backing, regardless what they want to go into. If they want to go into football or any other sport, I will be right there behind them. I don't want to force them into education. If that's something they want to do, it will always be there in the background. If they want to go into football or any sport, I will be there for them.
My parents' thing was, again, you have to be a doctor, you have to be a lawyer. Him, he can be whatever he wants. If he wants to do football, if he wants to go into sports, he can go into sports, and I'll let him.
The beautiful thing about education for me is that education, you don't have to be a young person to go to university. You can catch up on that.
One of the things that we've learned by going out to America, and as parents is very, very important, is it's not about playing for the Arsenal or the Chelseas or the Liverpools or the Man Uniteds or Real Madrids. Zidane wants to be a professional footballer. We as parents could just support him and make sure he enjoys the journey. Alongside that, we've got to enjoy the journey.
It's really not about saying that you're going to be the next Premier League footballer. It's very much focused around socialisation, communication and integration, and it's just about children being able to participate in a safe environment.
Asian parents normally have expectations of what their son or daughter should go into. Playing professional football isn't one of them, but as generations go by, more Asians are getting into the game.
I think it's happening slowly. I think it's happening very slowly, a little bit too slow for my liking. There are more Asian kids playing at grassroots level. My one concern is that a lot of Asian kids like to play with Asian kids, they like to play with their friends. There's often a reluctance to go out and play with, as a part of the broader community. And I feel like Asian players can't really develop if they're only playing amongst their own community. They need to see how they match up against other kids from different communities, kids from the wider community. So I do think that there's a bit of an issue there, and I do think that sometimes Asian kids who want to play football, who think that they're not being given a fair crack at the whip, I do think they need to look at themselves a little bit as well sometimes, and I do think that they need to try and expose themselves to as wide range of the experience in terms of football as they possibly can.
Over the next few years, you'll definitely see a lot more Asians coming through. I just think our generation is a bit different. But the new generation that's coming through, they've got the education and they've got the freedom to go out and do what they do. So a career in football, I think parents encourage that now. So in the next 10 years, there'll be a lot more Asians, a lot more in the professional game.
Being one of the very first Asians to sign a Premier League contract and thrust into this professional industry, and I was amazed that I just never come across any role models. And I'm not talking about players, I'm talking about just people at clubs, staff, admin staff, kit men, anyone. It was just non-existent. I mean, what an opportunity to be one of the first of anything, and I still think that opportunity exists today because I don't think that we've had enough Asian players like myself that have, well known in the game, played at all the different levels. We need more. We need more across the league. So there's that opportunity for everyone that's still there, and I just think if you can get the right support, with a bit of luck, it's there for everyone.
You can get as far as you want to be. Don't let anyone tell you can't play football. Even if it's your parents, you prove them wrong. That's the best thing you can do. Don't ever stop playing, because when I'm on a football pitch, I literally think about nothing else. That's my life, literally on a football field, wearing my favourite boots, playing the game I love. So don't let anyone tell you can't play. Don't stop and keep pushing.
anymore.